Say hey, New Testament readers. It is week 35, and we are going further up and further in with 1 Corinthians. Now, this book can be tricky because there are just so many problems flowing around. But as you continue to read it, I want you to keep in mind what you're going to read at the beginning of this week in chapter 8. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. So there's something about what Paul is saying here that is unlocked with the idea of Christ-like love. And so I want you to notice that the problems that we're going to be reading and the solutions to them in these chapters that are scheduled for this week are about our lives together. And a good reminder that godliness is not about a solo performance of righteousness, but it's about our interaction with one another. It's about how we love one another as Christ has loved us, as God the Father has loved us. All right, so one of the problems that the Corinthian church is dealing with is what to do with food sacrificed to idols. In the Corinthian environment, there were you could go to the marketplace and buy meat that was part of animals that had previously been sacrificed to a pagan god in a pagan temple. And you probably got that at something of a discount, slightly used meat, as it were. Now, there were some people within the Corinthian church who thought that was fine because idols are, well, nothing, right? They're no gods at all. And then there are others who said, no, idolatry is wrong and anything associated with it is wrong. Don't encourage the idolaters by buying their food. We can imagine what's going on there. Well, what does Paul say to that? He says, begin with love. Care more about what the other person thinks than you do about yourself. So, for the sake of your coming together, adopt the other person's rules. If you're being served food, don't question where it comes from, okay? Don't question whether it was offered to an idol or not. But if you have no scruples about this, don't you dare try to serve idol meat to your Christian brothers and sisters who think that that's wrong. And in this, Paul is going to use himself as an example. He's going to say, I have all kinds of rights as an apostle, but I surrender most of them. I don't take money. I don't travel with a wife. I become a Jew to the Jews. I become a Greek to the Greek. I adapt to the other person. Why? For the sake of the gospel and because it is an expression of the love of the gospel. But then along the way, he's going to say as well, don't think that an idol is nothing. Idol meat, that may be a matter of indifference in the bigger picture, but idolatry is not good. So don't you be going to idol feasts. Don't be participating in the idolatry of the pagans as if, well, it's nothing, it doesn't matter. That is sucking their souls. So don't you have a part with that. All right, another issue is going to come up in chapter 11 where we're going to be thinking about propriety in worship for several chapters. One is, what are women supposed to do in worship? Because they're praying and prophesying, they're speaking in public, and that's something that was not completely unheard of, but was relatively uncommon and perhaps pressing the boundaries and a little bit more in terms of the propriety of that society. Well, it appears that many of them were doing this without what were thought of as conventional head coverings or conventional hairstyles with length of hair, all of which were understood to be expressions of respect for the pater familias, the head of the family, whether the woman's husband or the woman's father or older brother, whoever was the head of her household. And so Paul is saying, go ahead and follow that convention. He uses some confusing language, talks about respect for the angels, he talks about nature, some things that are difficult for us to untangle. But again, the issue here is don't let your liberty be an obstacle to other people. Live for the sake of others. That applies to the Lord's Supper as well. The church was observing the Lord's Supper then, and I think it would be great if we could do this, but the logistics, wow, okay. They were observing it as part of a larger meal, a fellowship meal together. Well, it appears that there was a famine in the time that 1 Corinthians was being written, a food shortage, and that meant poor people just didn't have enough to eat. And so they weren't able to bring very much of anything to this shared meal, while the rich are bringing all kinds of food, but they're keeping it to themselves and overindulging to the point of drunkenness. And this is what Paul says is eating and drinking in an unworthy manner. Why? Because you don't recognize the body of Christ, which is all around you. So serve one another in love. even as you're observing the Lord's Supper. It's a shared experience. And then there's the matter of spiritual gifts, which we'll just get started on. Don't think your gift is better or worse than another's, and don't use it in performative terms for your own edification or for your own puffing of yourself up. Because everything that the Lord does, He does so that we can love and serve other people. So use your gifts, whatever they are, to build other people up. All right? Great stuff to read here in 1 Corinthians. Enjoy your reading this week.